everyone, thanks for tuning in to Kinsley Custom Guitars, and today we are going to be attempting to wax pot some pickups that have been pretty dang microphonic. To do this, I'm going to try out this wax melter that I got across the street at Goodwill. I want to see if it gets hot enough. If not, I can always order another wax melter. But I've got the wax over there, the melter. I'm going to clean it out real quick. So let's get this thing cleaned out and set up, and we'll be right back. So since this is not going to be used for hands anymore, I'm just going to use some regular Windex, and I'm just going to clean it out a little bit, get any gross, icky things that might have gotten on it from its stay at Goodwill out of there. Doesn't look too terrible. I mean, it's not the cleanest thing ever, but it's definitely not as bad as I was fearing. Oop, bumped the camera there. Alright, now I'm going to get a clean paper towel. Just wipe out any residue. Okay, so now that we have our clean pot here for our wax potting, I'm going to go ahead and get the rubber band off of this cable. Let's get it plugged in. Alright, now we're going to put some wax in the pot before we turn it on. So you're going to want to use a combination here of paraffin wax, unscented paraffin wax, and beeswax. And the reasoning behind this is paraffin wax expands very easily due to temperature changes, so it can expand and shrink a lot, and you might not fully get rid of the microphonics. Whereas beeswax doesn't expand as much and will help the pickups remain stable while you're playing them. I'm not going to give you my exact formula, but you do want more paraffin wax than you want beeswax. And the general rule of thumb is about 80-20. So 80% paraffin wax, 20% beeswax. Again, I'm not going to give you my exact amounts that I use, but that is your general rule of thumb for doing this. Let's get this open. Alright, so now let's pour some of this wax in here. We're going to need enough to get a good deep layer. This is a little wide, or I guess it's a little bit longer than what would be perfectly ideal for this. But hey, it was $3 at Goodwill, and if it works, it works. Can't argue with results. So let's go ahead and put some beeswax in here now. Once again, we just want to make sure it's got a good amount in there so that a pickup will be fully submerged when we get it in there. That should be deep enough. We can add more later if we need to. So it's plugged in. Let's get it kicked on. Put the lid on it, and we'll let it sit for a bit.
Alright guys, so at this point I would like to point out that wax melter was not working. I had well over an hour worth of video trying to get a cool time lapse like you're seeing here with this double boiler, but it was just not melting. After an hour, the beads had barely even started to liquefy, and it took, I think, about 3 hours for everything in there to become a liquid. and by the time it all melted, it was not going to be enough to pot a pickup. So what I ended up doing was pouring all of the wax that had melted into this double boiler here, and I basically just started over. This wax took about 45 minutes to melt in this double boiler method, but you've got to be really careful when you're doing it this way because you have to keep an eye on the temperatures. You can see here that I was starting to play with the wax a little bit, having some fun with it while I was waiting, but you can't let the temperature get over about 160 to 165. After that point you start getting vapors and stuff from the wax, and the vapors are highly flammable. 150 to 155 degrees is about perfect. As you can see there, I keep checking the temperature and adjusting the stove over and over again, and play with the wax some more while I'm waiting. But I just wanted to let you guys know that the wax melter that I had for the salon stuff just didn't end up working at all, and probably am going to need to buy another melter. I don't know if I'm going to go with a salon one or if I'm going to go with a more expensive one from a place like StewMac. But you can see at this point that I've gotten pretty much all the wax melted, enough so that I was able to start potting a pickup. And I got this pickup dunked into the wax and potted. And as you can see, I checked the temperature again, and you just basically have to wait and watch for all of the little bubbles to stop coming out of the pickup. This one took about 15 minutes to completely pot. I did speed up all of this video for you guys so that you don't have to watch 15 minutes of bubbles popping out of a pickup like I did. But this one did definitely take longer than the other one I did, which you'll see here in a minute. And as you can see, the thing got a little bit hot. So when the pickup is done potting, you don't see any more bubbles coming out of the bobbin. You just got to remove it from the wax and pat off all of the surfaces you're going to see, and just basically pat off the whole outside of the pickup. This just removes the excess wax and keeps everything in your guitar a little bit cleaner. Otherwise you're going to have lots of little flakes of wax hanging out everywhere, and it can get pretty messy pretty quickly. So when the pickup comes out of this wax, it's still going to be pretty dang warm. It's going to be about 150 degrees when it comes out of that pot. So just set it aside on a clean paper towel like I've done here, just to allow it to cool down and let the wax harden. You're going to want to let this cool down for probably about an hour, maybe 2 hours. It just depends on which pickup you're potting and how long it needs to cool down before you can really handle it. As you can see here, this is it after cleaning it up. It's still a little bit wet. This is pickup serial, looks like number 4. This one is a pickup that's currently in development under the name of Snaggletooth. And right now we are plopping in another pickup. This one is a Thickums pickup that we are testing. It's the very first one we ever did. This one didn't take quite as long. This one took maybe 7 or 8 minutes for all of the bubbles to stop appearing and basically be done. That's really the only way you can check if the pickup is done or not, is if it's still got bubbles. And as you can see here, I'm tapping it a couple times just to make sure, and this one is done. So we just repeat the process that we did for the first one. We just pop it out of the wax and pat off the extra while it's still liquid and can be absorbed by a paper towel. Again, just to keep your guitar nice and clean. And once you're done patting it off, just take it off of whatever you were using to suspend it in the wax with, and place it on that clean paper towel where the other one was. You don't have to do anything fancy to do this. You just got to be really careful. As you can see, mine is just a couple of pots from my kitchen. The one on top is just a cheap one that we don't use all that often at our house, so I just use that one. The bottom one, though, is a little bit nicer of a pot, and we do like to use that one, so that one is the one that we put the water in. When you set up these double boilers, you want to have the bottom one filled a good chunk of the way with water, so that as the water heats up and starts to evaporate and everything, you have enough to keep going for a long stint of time. So this is me taking it apart. I didn't get any video of me putting it together, but this is basically what all it was, is this top pot that the wax was in. And then I just used a little steamer. It worked really, really well holding up the other pot, and I figured that was probably a nice, safe way because it would hold it securely and it wouldn't be really shaky, and there were holes in it so that the steam could escape and pressure didn't build. So once you're done, all you got to do to clean up is dump out the bottom pot, and you can put that one back in the cabinet after you wash it and everything. And then what I did end up using that other wax melter for was a container to hold all the wax. I just kind of poured it all in there, and that way when it solidifies, I'll have it in a nice evenly shaped brick that I can cut up or break up into something else. And then I put that pot back on the stove to melt down all of the wax that had cooled and stuck to the inside. And as you can see, I just kind of let it settle for a bit, and once it liquefied, I kept pouring off whatever I could, and then I wiped out the rest, and then I clearly marked it at the end that this was not to be used to be making food anymore because it had wax in it, and you can't really get all the wax out after you're done with it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Every like and comment helps us out a lot, and drop a comment below and let us know what you'd like to see from us in the future. If you have any questions about how guitars work or anything like that, feel free to drop it in there, and perhaps we'll do a future video on it. Thanks, you guys, and have a great rest of your day.